Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my mid-year freakout tag. Because I'll be out of town when it'll be mid-year, I'm doing it a little early, and so this is the answers to this tag is going to be more so from the months of January to like beginning of June. So, yeah, sort of mid-year freakout tag. So, before we get started, currently I've read 52 books this year, and so this is going to be my answers to this tag are going to be based off of those. And so, yeah, mid year check in stats kind of before we get started with the tag, and I'll answer all the questions that are in the mid year freakout tag. So, I've read 52 books so far. I've read about 17,000 pages, almost 18,000 pages. My top three moods this year so far has been emotional, lighthearted, and funny. And then mostly fiction books. I think I read like maybe one or two nonfiction so far this year. My top genres have been young adult, contemporary, and romance, which again, those are my favorites, so makes sense. Most read authors so far are El Cosimano with 5 books, and then Suzanne Collins with also 5 books. Because I did the Hunger Games readathon, and I also read like 5 of the books in the Finlay Donovan series, so that's that. And then, yeah, this is what the pages look like for the first half of the year. And then my average rating for the first half of 2025 is 3.94. So usually I feel like my ratings are always 4 and above because I tend to rate books higher. So it is interesting that it's 3 and it's below 4. Yeah. But anyways, let's get started with the tag. Let's get started with the question. So first question, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2025? So I looked through my story graph, and so there are 12 books that I gave 5 stars, and a lot of them were like books that I definitely knew would be 5 stars, and this one is too. Like, the book that I chose is my favorite book of 2025 so far. But this one, just like, I still think about it so much, and like it's still like I think about it every day kind of, and I still feel like the way I felt when I read this doesn't compare to any of the other 5 stars. I feel like this is like one of those books that, like, if I could give this like 6 stars, if I could give this like 10 stars, I would. So that book is My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologizes by Frederick Bachman. Yeah, if you can see the tags, then you'll know. But I am obsessed with this book. I loved it so much, and it just like cemented the fact for me that I need to read everything by Frederick Bachman, cemented the fact that I love his writing style, I love his works, and I need to read everything he's read because I'm going to love them. So I read this, and I also read another one of his books recently, and that was Britt Marie Was Here, which is like the book that you should read after this one, and that one was also really good. And so just, yeah, more signs that I need to just go ahead and read everything he writes. So yeah, love this book. It had a bit of everything. It had a bit of mystery, it had a bit of, sort of fantasy, but mostly because it's like not from the point, but like it is centered kind of around the granddaughter, Elsa. And so there's a little bit of fantasy aspect with like the fairy tales. And then there's like obviously some subtle romance in there. And then there's like so many lighthearted and funny moments, some good banter between also the grandmother and Elsa. And like, it's just so good and so heartwarming, and so just, yeah, it touched my heart. So I highly recommend this. Please go read it. Okay. So this was the best book that I've read so far in 2025. Next question. What has been your favorite sequel of the first half of the year? If you know me. So last year I read the first, like the trilogy that was the Foxhole Court series, the All for the Game series. And so it was the Foxhole Court, the Raven King, and then the Kingsman. And so I started reading the fourth and the fifth book that came out. The fourth book came out last year and the fifth book came out this year. And so, of course, The Golden Raven. I don't know if I should count Sunshine Court as a sequel. So then it would be both of them, because both of them, like Sunshine Court technically is the fourth book, but it's also like the main characters are different. Like they were side characters in the first three books, but now they're main characters in this book. And so in my head, that is a sequel, but it's also the first book in like the new trilogy. And so yeah, Golden Raven, I read the ebook before I got the physical copy, but absolutely loved it. I need to reread it and tab it, because I even like when I was picking out the book from my bookshelf, I was like, it's been too long. It's been literally like 4 months since I read it, but it's been too long. I need to reread it. So yeah, hopefully sometime this year I'm gonna do a full reread of All for the Game series. So very excited. But yeah, one of my favorite books. Those who get it. And this book just, this series, these characters just, yeah. Yay. Yeah. So that was my favorite sequel of the first half of the year. Next question, is there a new release that you haven't read yet, but you're really excited to? I have so many for this. I have a lot of them that are also like not physical copies, but I have a lot that are physical copies as well. So I'm just gonna like list these at least out for you guys, and then, but know that there are many, many more in the list. So Floating World by Axie O. Got this at Y'all West. Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Read the other book, what was it called? Just for the Summer last year, and I really enjoyed it. Even though I was not in the mood for romance, I read it and I really enjoyed it. So yeah. Love Craves Cardamom. Very excited. Debut author, debut novel. Yeah. Set in Jaipur. So, and then Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Of course, again, I read Funny Story, I think last year when it came out, and I was not in the mood for romance and I still enjoyed it. And so yeah, I have seen mixed reviews for this, but I feel like for me, Emily Henry's writing, it's her writing that I love more than like the story or whatever. And so even like for Happy Place, I did not care about the story, or like I didn't like the story as much, but I loved the writing, and so I had a good time. So I feel like even if I don't like the story, I will probably have a good time because of the writing. So yeah, excited. And then obviously there's like so many others, like If We Survive This, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, and like, yeah, just many, many, many books that have come out this year that look so good and look like something that I'm going to love. And so I'm very excited to read them. So yeah. Okay. Next. What is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? The actual most is Reasons We Break by Jasmine Cordier. This is a spin-off / sequel to the book that was my favorite book of last year, and that was TJ Power Has Something to Prove. And this book is, the main characters in this book were side characters in that book, and so I have just been waiting. I have been waiting for this book for so long. It's coming out in November and I cannot wait. I already know it's going to be great, and I already know it's going to be one of my favorite books, and I'm just so excited. So yeah, this is like the most that I'm excited for. And then there's also like some others. I think I'm like trying to think. There was Well Actually by Maisie Eddings that I was really looking forward to, but then I got an early copy of it, so I read it, and I mean, I loved it so much. So like, it's not something I'm looking forward to anymore since I already read it, but that was a book that I was looking forward to before I read it. And there's Catabasis that also I think comes out in August that I'm looking forward to. I heard mixed reviews on that already from people who got early copies. So we'll see, but I think I'll probably enjoy it. Yeah. So we'll see. But those are the books that I can think of on the top of my head. But Reasons We Break is like number one. Number one. I will read it the day I get my hands on it. So yeah. And then next question. What is your biggest disappointment so far? This was sad. The book that I picked for this, and it was like kind of an obvious choice for me, was Rani Chaudhary Must Die by Adiba Jaigirdar. I was so excited for this. From the moment I saw the cover of this book, I knew I needed to read it, and I needed to read it immediately. And so I did read it once I got my hands on it, and it just wasn't working. And I like kept forcing myself, and I did finish it, but it just like the characters were not characters that I cared to read about once I started reading it. Like the premise sounded so good, everything just sounded so good about it, and like so many things about it were things that I was so excited for. And then I read it, and then the chemistry wasn't there. The reason for the enemies to love it, like the enemy part or the rival part, I guess, just did not, a lot of it made no sense. And like the main character, one of them, was not likable at all. Like it wasn't even that like I could try to understand her. It was just like I could not root for her at all. And so yeah, I feel like at least in a YA contemporary romance, I do need characters that I can root for, or at least try to understand in some sort of way. And I could not do that at all for this one. And so yeah, it was a tough book to finish for me. And so yeah, this one was my biggest disappointment so far. Okay, next question. What is your biggest surprise so far? And that is The 3 Lives of Kate K by Kate Fagan. This book I had not heard of at all. Like I had no idea this book existed or was gonna come out or anything. And then on my book club, somebody suggested we read that for one of the months. And so we ended up picking it, and I ended up loving it. I went in completely blind. Like I did not know what this book was about. I did not, read the synopsis or anything. The only thing I knew was the cover with the, rear view mirror and all that, and then the name of the book. And so it gave me, at least the name and the cover made it seem like it was going to be like a mystery book where we're like not sure who this person is, who Kate K is, and like all of these things. And it was more about life and like how circumstances and choices lead you to become or lead your life to become something completely different from what you had thought it would be, in a way. And so yeah, it was just like about the life of Kate K and how she became who she became, and how she became Kate K, and like the 3 lives of Kate K. And I'm trying to phrase it in a way that makes sense. But anyways, I had not heard about this book, and this was not on my radar at all. But I ended up reading it, and I ended up loving it. And I was reading it like on vacation, on train rides and like at cafes and stuff. Like that's how invested I was. Like once it kicked off, once like the first event happened that led her to her next life, I guess. Since then, like I was just like, I need to stop everything and just read this because it's so interesting. So yeah, definitely a surprise. And yeah, this was another book that I gave 5 stars. Like I really enjoyed it. So yeah. Okay, next question. A book that made you cry. This one, I feel like I'm someone who has a very hard time crying in general, but also like I don't cry often, and like it's like very rare, and like it's most of the times when I cry is like when I'm watching shows and stuff. And so it was and like never with books. There's been only one book so far, and I think that was last year that I read that made me cry, and that was As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Khattu. And since then, and before that, there has not been a single book that actually made me shed tears. But I do have an answer for this one this time, because for the first time, like even with As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, it was like tears were falling, but it was not like I was like sobbing my eyes out or whatever. But in April, I read a book and I was literally in bed sobbing, and I had to stop reading at some points because I could not see the book because I was sobbing that much because of this book. And that book was This Is Me Trying by Raquel Marie. I read this on Libby at first and then got the physical book at Y'all West, but insane. I also got it signed. And yeah, this book, like, honestly, I was deciding between this and My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologizes for the best book of 2025 so far. But since I had this to give as an answer for the book that made you cry, that's why I chose My Grandmother. But technically, both of these books are like my best books of 2025 so far. Yeah, this book, I mean, check trigger warnings, read the synopsis before you decide to read it. But yeah, this book already has a lot of, like, from the get-go, it has a lot of difficult topics that it deals with. But then I think we got to like some part, I don't even know what it was, but it was like, I don't even know what the point was that made me start bawling my eyes out basically. But there was some part, like some chapter, I literally, it's been over a month since I read this, so my brain is fuzzy since I've read so many books since. But there was like one specific chapter, I think, from then onwards, it was like, I was just crying for the rest of the book. And I think it was like somewhere like midway almost, or like three-fourth of the way through or whatever. But yeah, highly recommend this book. It has a lot of representation. It discusses a lot of heavy topics, but it is very, very good and very well written. And I highly recommend also this author's other books. I have read her, this was my third book by the author. This is also her third book. I think I've read everything that has come out so far. And then If We Survive This, that I mentioned as the book that I'm excited about, that is going to come out in a couple weeks. That is also on my TBR. But yeah, I've read everything by this author and I've loved everything that she has written. And the other two books are way more lighthearted, and yeah, but I the writing is great, so I recommend reading any of her books. But this one made me bawl my eyes out, and this one is my favorite, I think, at the moment. Yeah, we'll see how I feel after If We Survive This, because I mean, I don't expect that to become my favorite because it's horror and I'm not someone who reads horror, but I am someone who reads Raquel Marie's books, and so I will read it. But because it's horror, I don't imagine it'll become my favorite of her books when this exists, but we'll see. But yeah, highly, highly recommend this book. It is so good and so honest and so real, and just like, yeah, it's so good. Yeah, highly recommend. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next is a book that made you happy. For this, it is an entire series technically, and that is the Finlay Donovan series, like I mentioned before, by El Cosimano. I am up to date now on all the books. There are 5 books and 1 novella in this series so far, and the next book, I think the 6th book, is coming out next year sometime. And so this series has just been so fun. Anytime I've just needed like a fun audiobook to listen to, this has been the book that I picked. And it's just, I'm so sad kind of that like I'm up to date now, because now I don't have any more books in the series to read, and I like just want to be back in the world, back with Vero and Finlay, and like, you know, all the fun stuff, everything that goes wrong, everything that could go wrong always goes wrong in this book series. And it's so fun. It's Like, obviously it's a mystery, and but like it's a cozy, funny mystery in a way that like it is a, I guess it's a weird pick for a book that made me happy, but it was fun, and I felt like I was along for the ride with the two of them and like with the rest of the gang or whatever. And yeah, just a fun series. Highly recommend the audiobook. It is so good. Yeah. And then, okay, last question. What books do you want to read by the end of the year? So, if you watch my previous videos that are like about my TBR, then you know that I have an insane amount of books in my physical TBR that I need to read and I need to get through. And yeah, there's like my physical TBR is currently in the 3 digits, and that is very concerning for me because I need to read them. I need to read the books I'm buying. And so definitely my physical TBR. So for some of the physical TBRs, I want to read, I have the first 2 books in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, and I haven't read any Sanderson books before, so I want to start that series and maybe even read the whole trilogy. And yeah, so I can start my Sanderson journey. And then another series I want to read is the Gilded Wolf series by Roshni Chokshi, because I have all 3 books in the series and I've had them for over 2 years and I haven't read them. So I think I need to at this point. So yeah, I think what I want to do for the rest of the year is read a lot more fantasy books, I think, because I have so many that I just haven't read because I keep pushing them off because they're like harder to like, there's much more information I need to get in my head before it becomes like a fast read. And so I keep pushing them off for like easier contemporary reads, because then I don't have to like learn about the world and learn about the magic or like whatever. So yeah, definitely want to prioritize fantasy for the rest of the year. And definitely, like I said, want to read more Frederick Backman. This is going to be bad for my physical TBR since I don't have any more Frederick Backman books on my shelves. So I'm going to have to buy them, or I guess I can read them on Libby. But I will end up buying them because I do want them in my collection because I know I'm going to love them. So, and I want to annotate them. And so, yeah, those definitely. I also want to read, I started my Robin Hobb journey, like the Farseer trilogy, the world and stuff. So I read Assassin's Apprentice in April, I think. And so I want to read that first trilogy at least this year. So trying to find Royal Assassin. It's not available in any of the bookstores here for some reason. Like they're all out of stock. And so we'll see. Maybe when I'm like traveling in the next few weeks, then I'll get it from there. But yeah, definitely want to read the first trilogy in that. Yeah, so basically it's like fantasy is my priority, and then also just like these 3 authors whose books I want to read more of, which is Frederick Backman, Brandon Sanderson, and Robin Hobb. So those are my plans for in terms of reading for the rest of the year. Anyway, that was all the questions in the mid-year freakout tag. Thank you for watching. Let me know what your favorite books have been so far in the year, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!